When does anybody coming?
Good question. You come to Mr. Little. I don't see the mayor.
How you doing there, sir?
All right, and you?
All right.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Good.
Had a
How
trip?
about yourself? Hey, great. Thank you.
All right. Great. I mean, you
Hey, how you doing, Mr. Manager?
How you doing?
How you doing, Mr. Kanai? Mr. Little?
Hello, sir.
I'd like to call the Benton City Income Tax Oversight Committee to order. Madam Clerk?
Member Allen, Member Bowers, Member Cleveland, Member Kennard,
Present.
Member Little,
Here.
Member Meeks, Member Noel, Member Tyne, Mayor Muhammad.
President. Just like to open up. I'm just leaving Levette and talk to a few residents who live on that street. And they are absolutely ecstatic. As quoted in the paper, one young lady, Frances Davis, she was quoted as saying, "I'm glad they're doing something before I die." Because she's not a young woman, not old though, but older, had not seen any light in sight or at the end of the tunnel, despite the fact that we passed the income tax in November of 2017. We collected starting January 1st, 2018, and here we are, September 10, 2019, and the work is beginning. But with all that being said, the residents on that street, as stated, are absolutely thrilled and are applauding the efforts of the city staff as well as council and the contractors that did that particular street. Starts at Empire and goes down. Now there's a part that skipped, which probably didn't fall under the 1 through 4 taser rating, but there are some patches there that were satisfied. And then the next 100-foot block or the next part of it is smooth. And then when you cross May all the way down the cross, that was done. So they really came in construction, really did a great job on this first street. So that's my sentiment. I do want to yield to the city manager just with an update on the project.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm going to yield to the income tax coordinator to give you that update.
Hello. As the mayor stated, the project did start this past Friday, which was September the 6th. So the work has been started, which is a good thing. They're starting on the northeast side of town and then working their way to the southeast side of town. So right now they're starting on, I think it's Robbins, Levette, Empire Cross, Hannah Court.
Can you slow it down, or is that in the packet?
It's in the packet.
Okay, great.
Right. On just the northeast. Okay. So as of right now, they have started work on Robbins and Hannah Court, Robbins and Salem, Levette, Empire, and Cross. So that work has started. Right now, they're doing the patching, which it should be approximately a 2-day process. They will be posting up signs to let the residents be aware that work will be, started, so they can not park on the street, so the streets can be clear. But they would get like a 2-day prior notice before the work actually starts, so they can prepare to park elsewhere for that time frame. The streets that will be completely filled for repairs would take anywhere between 4 to 5 days. That's for the entire street, not just patching.
So patching with a vet, what would that be considered?
Patching.
That whole street?
Did they do the whole street?
They did the entire street.
Told that they were just doing patching.
It was a portion that was just patched.
So I don't have that map that was, because a pre-construction meeting was held on September 5th that I was not included in. But I was told it was just patching done, but maybe it was areas of the streets when they did the survey.
Right. So certain areas is completely resurfaced.
Which is a good thing.
And then there's
Then some is not.
that's right.
That's what she means by the patch.
Okay.
And they did have the meeting and laid out how they were going to do it, and that was sent to you.
I got that.
Excuse me.
Chair recognizes Member Kennard.
I'd like to ask a question because I noticed there on Broadway, it was really terrible at the area that they did patch. So that makes me feel pretty good. But right where May and Broadway cross, that was damage done to the street when I know Emma Marsh some years ago had done some drain work there. They filled it in with a lot of, I don't know what you call asphalt, and a few cars run over and it's back raggedy. So I want to know if right there in that area, because every screw in my van is just about rattling. It's just like a child's rattler. And I want to know if somehow or another, if that would be one of them that would be patched. I know they're in that area, which is a few streets down from me, but I'd like to know if that would be one of them, because that is a main cross street that a lot of traffic is passing on.
And is that on Cross?
That's the four-way stop of May and Broadway. May and Broadway, where it crosses at the four-way
I
stop.
see.
Yes.
And then down
Further,
in Colfax.
they have patched that, which is much better traveling in that area.
What about right by Sunny Spot? Because I just went over
Sunny
there.
Spot is terrible down there. Yes, it is.
We'll check on that and confirm it and get word to you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We'll send it out so all of you know.
Mrs. Galladay, you have the floor.
That's good for the street patching repairs. However, I do have a report on the collection process. When I'm going through this, I did make an error as far as like the total collected is 5 million. However, it's supposed to be 2 million. It was a type error on my part. Sorry about that. But basically, as the mayor did state, that we started withholding to the income tax started January the 1st of 2018. That's when withholding started coming in. That's when businesses that was withholding for their employees basically was sending in their payments. So money started being collected as far as January the 1st, 2018. This year, January 1st, 2019 is when the income tax processing became, when we started doing the processing of the returns, which means when you file your federal, state, you was also supposed to file your local income tax return. So that's when the processing began this year. That's when residents, if you do owe income taxes, you know, stated to pay your income taxes that was owed. As of right now, we have collected $2,530,883.72. We processed 2,585 returns. And what was refunded out of that amount was $77,311.60. Most of the refunds basically came from people that filed a return, paid, but wasn't supposed to. Either they didn't live in the area, the municipality, the limitations, stayed in Benton Township or something of the sort, that they basically just did not need to file a tax return, and they did. So right now, we're still processing corporate returns and anyone that has filed for extensions for their tax returns. Our next step is compliance, which means we're going to go out, make sure all the businesses that's located in the city has filed their tax returns, as well as all residents that actually live in the city limits file a tax return. So that's our next step in this process.
2,530,000.
883, yes.
A lot of numbers I ain't used to hearing, Mr. Manager.
I see the smile on your face.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, that's up until real time
Correct.
today. Thank you so much. And that's 2,800 and returns.
2,585 returns.
2,000. And refunds. Thank you. Could you just, so is that sheet for the streets that are currently first on the list? Is that in here or
Yes.
pictures and everything?
Correct.
I have no further questions. Any questions from the public? Chair recognizes Member Little.
Don't have a question, but just like to say it was a pleasant surprise to come down Broadway and not go through that minefield up there at the end.
Just so you know, you probably do, this is being recorded right via YouTube.
Correct.
Thank you. This brings us to the discussion of sidewalks and alleys. There was a packet, I believe, that accompanied this particular, which is the sidewalk asset management plan. One of the things that was discussed in the last meeting was, from a priority standpoint, beginning with sidewalks that would correspond with the safe route to school, where you have heavy traffic or more traffic than others where students are walking to school. Areas where, sidewalks are also frequently used in areas with development, of course, residential areas as well, because we need a complete makeover of our sidewalks. And the sidewalk asset management plan, which is pretty comprehensive, it was broken down, and this is on page 3, different rating, good, fair, poor, which the sidewalk integrity, sidewalk reconstruction would be the treatment. Fair, moderate, spallings, scaling, or cracking, single or multiple panel replacement, good, none to slight isolated cracking, no maintenance required. And then we have ADA approved, non-ADA approved, which would be reconstruction based on ramp condition, no treatment, reconstruction of ADA compliant ramp. Hazard obstacles, vegetation growth, bushes, grass, tree branches, obstacles, utility poles, fire hydrants, vertical displacement impacted by slab, differential movement with water, treatment routine, weed maintenance, pruning, removal when necessary, relocation or removal, grinding of surface. I think this will be a great opportunity as well, where we locate those trees, Mr. Manager, where I know we went out and marked different trees in different areas, but the follow-up was where, and at one time I know we had $70,000 or $77,000 allocated for tree removal. From the CDBG, that's something that can be looked at. But as we in concert try and, because maybe some of those areas where, you know, the tree is affecting the sidewalk, which we have many, we can kill two birds with one stone, because it makes no sense to do the sidewalk, but it's the root from the tree that's causing the buckle. So that's just my kind of soapbox in terms of, you know, just a discussion, because in a few days we'll be needing to present to the council our recommendations for the sidewalk plan and alleys.
That will be a part of the pre-construction meeting plan, just as we had to do on the streets, make sure that there were no repairs done on areas where there were broken water lines. So we do the water lines and then do the streets.
Chair recognizes Member Kennard.
I was already informed that, the tree there by the Fresh Start Children's Garden was one of those that were supposed to have been on the list, because that sidewalk is a big steep, distance, from the roots of the tree. And the tree seemed like the roots are almost setting on top. And it's on the tree lawn that the tree is. And one of the limbs fell, last year, and it shook a great part of the neighborhood. So it is a danger there, and it's been a danger there for quite some time. We did take some funding out of our Fresh Start monies and had one of the limbs taken off because it was a danger of falling and maybe coming down on our fence line. But it's at a point now that we really need to have that tree taken out. So I hope that they will consider that seriously to get that out and be utmost important there at Pearl and May Street. And I was thinking too, since we were mentioning about sidewalks and alleys, that I don't know, what are they doing with the material that they're scraping loose from those streets?
In some instances, they're chopping it up and they can reuse it. It just depends on what they have going on at that time.
I was thinking that it would look like it would be economical for them, as we treat the alleys, to those that are not paved, to maybe go through and have the truck just level off the alleys, because some of them have deep openings. And for a safety issue, to have it leveled off and then maybe use that as a field.
Leveling them off, they might need to keep it in there too. But yeah, that leveling process is a part of what is going to happen in the alleys.
Okay, because our alley is terrible, but I've had the lawnmower to go so far down and cut but it's not really making a difference because I can't move something from someone else's back and straighten it out, back there. It's up to the city to, make sure that those persons in those homes remove debris that they have, like old tires and other weeds and limbs out there.
We'll make sure that that is brought up in the pre-construction when they start on the alleys,
Okay.
to make sure that those alleys are clear.
Will that be done in this year?
That's all planned, is that part of it?
No, that's not a part of, the first phase of, Operation Fix the Streets. That's the first, 990,000 that was allocated. The next phase will be streets, sidewalks, and alleys.
Do they have a time frame for that? When will that be?
Probably next construction season.
So that's next year or
That's
so?
next year.
Reason I said it because there are some safety issues right there in that alley. If the police was in some kind of
Well, the manager, pardon me, sorry.
it's okay.
The manager in the CDBG budget, we have a match where I believe it's 70,000 for sidewalks, out of the CDBG funding, where we'll still be able to address some sidewalks, but that won't be with the
None of the
income
alleys
tax.
though will be addressed.
Not the alleys this year. Unless, now we do have, for emergencies, so much set aside for emergencies. It was one of the reasons why the council and this body, when we said how are we, and in the resolution, but for emergencies, because if there's a situation where we have an alley or like we had the bus fall in the sinkhole, we do have a pot of money there where we can address it. So if there's some alleys that absolutely are in emergency status.
How do we determine that, excuse me, but except that after an accident happens, then we said there's a danger there.
Well, I would report, I think the first step is to report to the manager's office or to your not local, but to your ward commissioner, who can report it to the manager. And then he can send out his team to assess and to say whether or not this is an emergency or is it something that we can,
They can fix it themselves.
or, So the chair recognizes Member Little.
I just wanted to mention, I think it was the last meeting I mentioned about the slag along the railroad right-of-way over there. Mr. Meeks mentioned that a lot of times that's contaminated. And he's certainly not entirely wrong, but it's never the same every place. Some places are, some places aren't. It'd probably be worth our while to just go to different areas there, take samples and have it tested to find out what condition. Because if you can find areas where you can take out 50, 60 tons of slag to use that you don't have to pay for because it's yours already, it'd be worth it.
Is that directed to the manager?
Just a suggestion.
And I'm nodding yes.
Just a suggestion.
So, go ahead, Member Kanai.
Also, I was looking, here on, this page up here, at my margin saying, here, Benton Harbor Port of Opportunity, and it's speaking about sidewalk assessment management plan. I see these 3 illustrations of this. Is this speaking on these areas being considered as being worked on? Because now I can see the neighborhood because they're much more affected. I mean, the damage to the sidewalks and streets much more in need of repair than I can see down here on Territorial here in this illustration, or the beach, Gene Clark Park, right here.
Well, I think that
I didn't know what this picture is
Right,
saying.
well, the photo is just, an image of the city. You have a picture of downtown area, Arts District. Then you have a photo of Gene Clark Park, which certainly needs maintenance. And then you also have a photo of the neighborhoods,
Which is
or-
much worse.
which is, as we can see, worse. However, all of the 4.4 square miles must be maintained. Downtown, which is where, the business community, future development. And we also have to keep in mind when we were going through this study of Grand Rapids, and that street task force that was put together, which we probably need to have one here, but we do have the income tax board. But they found that when you have good infrastructure, that will produce economic development. So I think that we have to just be mindful that the neighborhoods, the downtown, Gene Clark Park brings in close to $160,000-$170,000 a year in terms of parking fees. So, we have to also, because we don't want people to be coming from Indiana, Las Vegas, throughout the country and even the world, and they come to the park. I'm not suggesting you saying this, and those sidewalks or walkways are, undesirable, or, so I just think we have to be balanced in our approach. And then also, from an economic development standpoint, if we're going to continue to attract business to invest, because if we look at how the tax dollars are broken down, the 10 homes on Graham Boulevard pay more in taxes than all of the homes in the city, Main Street back. So, we have to look at all of those factors. We can't say, well, if the sidewalk is broken or destroyed over there, we're not gonna fix it. We're gonna focus just over here. We have to focus on the whole, because everybody is paying. That's the whole piece. Everybody that's paying in should be able to see some results. I think that's only fair, and I think that's what this board and even the city council, has to keep in mind, that every person that's paying in, they should be able to see some results. I'm glad Chemical Bank manager, I know she would want to see a nice sidewalk for people to come in to deposit money on Main Street. So we just have to keep the balance. I'm beating the camel, but that's just my perspective.
But one point I was trying to bring about mostly, if we travel downtown here and we look around, these streets have been addressed many times more than the streets in the infrastructure. So I think that
Some of them.
you look at the human body, if the head is all dressed up and the heart is just about to give out, where the heart of the city is in the inner city, that's the body. How well can you say a city is functioning when the inner city look like it's on life support? But then the downtown, which was okay, and their streets wasn't nearly as broken as many of the streets there in the inner city. That's what I'm saying. I know that not all of them, but the point is, some of them haven't been addressed for years, whereas most of downtown has been addressed many times more.
I think we all can agree that the downtown area, there
It looks
was
presentable.
absolutely there was more of a concerted effort to start downtown. Um, that is a fact, Ms. Kennard. I will say if you go down where the Citadel is, back by the sanitation, up and around that Colfax area, the
Just the
street
middle spot, yes.
is terrible.
Yes, I understand that part.
So that area, that's an area that I would say definitely needs to be addressed. When you start talking about the downtown area. And there's some other areas, right, coming down that Colfax area, that street over by, I think it's a Ready Taekwondo, Crossing Market, where the House of David, where they live, those sidewalks and streets, even Wall, we're gonna have to talk about that because that's bricks right now. Is that correct? Wall Street right down here.
I know.
It's bricks.
Yep, it's brick.
Yeah, so how are we gonna, are we gonna leave it brick? Are we gonna, what way do we go there? So these are just, and that's why I wanna lead into miscellaneous because the discussion for the sidewalks, alley, Mr. Mitchell, his staff is gonna be working with the engineering team to put that plan together. This board will see what is recommended first, then the council, but in the miscellaneous section, I think this conversation fits right within that. But I do agree. I think to start with the 80-20 was the most practical for the first wave. But I do think that as we continue to move forward, we just have to keep in mind of the overall and just making sure it's balanced. Riverview will be developed. What's the sidewalk situation down there? Because at the end of the day, the economic development of the city is so important because as it stands, the status quo cannot be maintained. The tax dollars from Mrs. Granny so-and-so, Miss, that the housing part of it, that can't continue to hold the city up. Just from the property, the real property tax dollars, they've taken away the personal property for businesses that pay or make less than $80,000. Businesses that make less than $80,000, we don't receive personal property. They get an exemption. Where at one time, that wasn't the case. So we have to now look at ways to where we can generate economic development so the resident is not trying to hold up Benton Harbor while one is calling me right now. So I'm gonna yield to the manager.
Manager has nothing to say.
So just my, but the economic development and I'm just saying this that we try and make it coincide with as we fix the streets. Just a conversation, one of the residents over on Salem, said to me, I'm paying, this area here pays more in property taxes because of the homes than probably 10 different areas in the city. But his issue was our sidewalks, our alleys are in worse condition. So I feel like I'm paying the most in taxes, but I don't, when I drive out my driveway, I don't see no, but of course now we can address that. Hannah Court is being addressed. Salem is being addressed, but the other person is saying, I pay my taxes too. Even though it may be $200 in winter taxes or summer taxes, they may be paying $15 in summer or whatever it is, but they still feel like I'm paying my taxes. I should get and I should see some improvements in my community that I run into the business community. Where one person bought, I think it was over 50 lots, one business, and they want housing in that area, which will bring economic development and put those lots on the tax roll. Should we look at that area and, address that area as well? Now that's in the hood. But if we get that area fixed, sidewalks, alleys, and those 40 or so lots are gonna bring $3 million in tax revenue to City Hall, is there an incentive for us on this board to look at certain areas where economic development can be generated and address those areas? Member Kennard?
Mayor, we all have an opinion about things, and that's why we're here.
Well, I'm asking.
This is just my opinion that I shared with you. But I did hear you say hood, and I'm trying to get the mindset to our community is not to refer to our areas as hood, but neighborhood. And so I'm trying to change the whole frame as to how we look at it. And as we speak to our children, we want to change their minds from saying hood, and maybe we'll start treating our neighborhoods better. And I want to refer more as not a hood, as a neighborhood. Okay?
I appreciate your opinion. Chair recognizes Member Little.
Just a thought, speaking specifically of sidewalks and the area in between where the tree lines are. In many, yes, I will. Speaking specifically of the sidewalks and the associated tree lines, most instances, I suspect those are probably part of the right of way. But I believe that you've got an ordinance, as most places have ordinances, that indicate that sidewalks have to be maintained by the property owner. I think right now the city is doing what it really needs to do, and that is go ahead and do the replacement and build it back up. But I think you need to look at long term. Once you've done that, are you going to keep coming back to do the whole thing yourself, or is there some point that ordinance will kick in where the adjoining property owner would be required to maintain and take care of that?
Right, well, I know the city charter states that the city is responsible for the maintenance of the streets, the sidewalks, the alleys. That was part of the resolution, the language that was in the charter as it relates to the infrastructure. There is the manager can help me. There's a responsibility on the homeowner as it relates to the removal of snow, which of course, if it just sits, that destroys the infrastructure. And there may be some other, ordinances that may affect, but I know that the responsibility of the snow removal, which is something that we have not enforced in some time, that's a huge piece because You know, the water, the snow is just sitting and it's not being, you know, then that just sinks in. It's been the same way, even with some of the streets as well. So, Mr. Manager.
You are correct. You are correct.
So, I want to open up for public comment if there are no other miscellaneous topics or comments that uh, help the discussion.
I want to ask if it still remains that if there's debris and other things that has collected in our drains, are we allowed to clean those drains out? I always keep my drain clean across the street, but I was instructed that we cannot go into the drain. Sometimes there's a lot of vegetation that is growing into it. And many times when you remove a lot of these things, everything runs through free. But a lot of people don't keep them clean and pull out a lot of the debris in there, it only gets worse. So this is one of the things that I want to know. Am I okay? Is it okay if I clean out a drain, or we can tell the community that it's okay if you clean out the drains? I know previously the city manager said that we could clean around the drain, but not out of the drain. So I don't know.
You know, I won't tell a citizen or a resident what you can and can't do, but I would recommend, if you've got a drain that's stopped or up, that the call is made here and give us a chance to deal with it. Now, one of the things that I'm instructing staff to do is when it starts raining, don't go home. You gotta get wet and find out where the water's standing and deal with those bad places. And then when we don't find it, we're asking that the residents call in and let us take care of it.
Okay, thank you.
This brings us to public comment.
Yeah, Bryson, I just want to say how good of a job this oversight committee have done. Finally get some streets paved and repaired. Just one thing I want to ask a question about, will there be lines put down with the yellow markings to divide the streets? Now, was Caitlin doing that too? I forgot to look at it. I'm just trying to find it.
To my knowledge, there's no requirement.
Oh,
for the local.
Oh, it's not.
There's no requirement.
Right.
If you go to like St. Joe
Mhm.
and you go down their local streets, you won't see certain local, like say for instance, a Britain or a Broadway that runs into, or certain parts with Colfax, where you're running into major thoroughfares, but in the local area, there's no requirement for the city to do lines on, say, like a Apple or a Tappan or Hastings. Unless the manager wants to start that project up.
No, I'm just questioning about it. Just thinking about it. You're right.
What I'll do with that question though is research it and make sure, we will all know, okay? But on the major streets, you definitely have a line.
Thanks a lot. Keep up the good work.
If there are no other public comments, this brings us to staff/committee comments. I'd like to begin with Mrs. Galladay.
No comment.
Mrs. Osler,
No comment.
City Manager,
No comment?
Member
Nothing.
Little, Member Allen,
No comment.
Member
There
Kennard.
was one, yes. I hope that in us getting our streets repaired, when there are companies such as electric, gas, or whatever comes in and do, work that, comes into, going into our streets or tearing into the streets, that we have something in place that they prepare, repair those streets back to their existing, state. Because that's what has happened many times. They go in to repair and leave, the streets all tore up.
Okay, well, duly noted, Mr. Manager.
Duly noted. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I'm instructing staff in public works, particularly on these street items, anything that's done on our streets, they need to see it when it's starting and make sure they're monitoring while it's going on, and then see it before it's closed up. So they have to know what's going on in the city.
Thank you. Yeah, I would just conclude by saying, this probably should have been in the miscellaneous. I know that we currently are putting our funds, income tax dollars, into Edgewater, which is in St. Joseph. I do know we have a relationship with Fifth Third, with our, I believe, payroll. However, I do think that we should look at, if possible, I know Fifth Third is, national. So I think we do need to be tied to, a national bank where, of course, payroll and different, could be anywhere, but I think that we should look at, if there is a local bank, that the income tax dollars can be lodged. I think that that's something that should be considered. But again, that's administrative. So that's in the office of the manager. But I think that it's a gesture and a suggestion, that if it's a local income tax, then we should try and find a local bank.
Amen.
I think I saw Miss Allen smile a little bit.
Just a little bit.
I agree.
I certainly agree.
Yeah.
And this is not a voting board or record, so there's no conflict, for her to be on the board, as a business representative, from a local business that's in the city where the business is paying into the tax, and she is as well. So with that being said, I'd like to adjourn.
What have you been doing, man?
Just working my little butt off. Well, that's a sign that you're busy. Yeah. How's life treating you? Good, good.
Yeah. I'm still, no, I'm doing the landscape. Well, they've been trying to sell the house for the longest, fixing it, the landscape where at least it brings the appearance of the house, that helps sell the house.
Well, that's the time.
Yeah.